Halloween. And somehow it worked into my message at the nursing home of all places. Why would you go to the nursing home with a message about Halloween? Well, didn't necessarily intend to, but I thought about this, that three things, and this is the way I mentioned it there, is that there's three things that I never did care for about Halloween. And one was obviously the death that's involved in it. And then I talked about how the Bible says that we're not supposed to be children, we're not children of the dead, but we're children of the living, right? And I said darkness. Not that I was afraid of the dark, but I didn't necessarily care for the dark, atmosphere and going out. And the Bible says a lot about that, right? The wicked things go on at the dark time, but we're supposed to be sober-minded, and we're not to be children of darkness, but children of the light. And then the last thing was about demons. I always hated demons and monsters and gory things like that, and so I've already decided I'm never going to figure this thing out. I was off, Zachary. It's my fault. All right, now we got it. Even our missionary, poor missionary, I said, "Oh, he'll control it back there. I've got you all turned on," and then I forgot to turn it on. Anyway, that's why God gave me a help. But she can't do this for me. So anyway, I did talk a little bit about some of the darkness that goes on. Now, when I was a kid, we went trick-or-treating. I dressed up like clown. I dressed up like a hobo, We had a pillowcase and we filled it full of candy. Didn't really think much about the evil things of it. Now, there are a lot of evil things about this day and the origin of it and everything, but that's not my intention to, the world does what the world does. But as Christians, we're to be, come out from among them. All right. So what am I talking about tonight? The virtuous woman. What's that got to do with Halloween? Nothing. But that's where we are tonight in our series, Proverbs 31. Proverbs 31. Now, I love this chapter. Very popular. You read about it a lot on Mother's Day and such, because it deals a lot with this virtuous woman. And we're going somewhere a little bit different tonight. But just a couple quick points about this series. We've seen a lot about in the book of Proverbs about diligence and hard work and how it's a characteristic of a wise person. In fact, Sunday, for those who are out of here on Sunday morning for Sunday school, working with the children, what we started doing is I'm trying to catch up when we've had special speakers on Wednesdays. Of course, we're not doing the Proverbs, so I'm trying to make that up in Sunday school and going back. Well, this last Sunday we did Proverbs 10, and basically the idea there was that if we have a desire for wisdom and we follow after wisdom, righteousness is going to be the fruit of that. And all the areas in which righteous works come from our wisdom, it requires diligence to do those things well. And so this idea of diligence and hard work keeps coming up in our text. And tonight, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about hard work. We've all got places in our life where we have to put forth our best effort at work, of course. We got responsibilities there, and we got to be hard workers. It requires our best effort. At our home, that's a lot of work. Things pile up. You just can't let them sit, or else things are going to break down. And it's a lot of upkeep, a continual job, a never-ending job that we've got to do. And then, of course, at the church, it requires hard work to get things done that need to be done in the name of Christ. So all these things require hard work. But when I think about hard work and diligence and just, a lot of hardworking jobs don't usually get a whole lot of credit for the work that they do. Yeah, I don't know if you ever noticed that. I remember in the cleaning business, I remember feeling like my job was to not be noticed. Because nobody really noticed. They didn't come in and notice the things you cleaned. They would come in and notice if you missed something. They'd say, "Oh, you missed a spot." Well, what about 90% of the things that I cleaned, right? That's just the nature of work, though. Hard work, you don't get recognized for it. But if you do something wrong, boy, they'll really get you for that. So anyway, that's just the nature of it. And so, but there's one thing that I think about. Probably we can never give due honor or say things nice enough or give the due respect than that of a virtuous woman. I mean, I'm talking about, you think about somebody, whether they work outside the home or not, because and I'm all for, obviously, stay-at-home wives. I like that concept, and I think it's biblical. But look, even women that work outside of the home, guess whose responsibility it usually falls on? To make sure the house is clean and the food's cooked and all. Even if they work outside the house, they still got to make those things happen, and it seems like, and take care of the kids and all this kind of stuff. And you see, like, a mother's job is never done. It's never ending, and they keep, and so this idea of the virtuous woman, as we look in our text, and I'm going to read it all here in a minute, but here are some interesting things. First of all, when you read the very beginning, we're talking, these are the words of a king, and he's talking about the things that his mother taught him. Right? And I don't think she was necessarily teaching about herself when she talked about the virtuous woman, but the idea is probably these are the types of things characteristics that she had herself, I'm thinking. But the first thing is, you notice she gives good counsel to her children. And that's a good thing. I mean, you're constantly training up your children, trying to keep them wise. I mean, goodness, he's a king, right? She's done something right with him, I would think. I know there's bad kings too, but so the mother, one of these things, this ideal woman, this virtuous woman, one of the things that she does, give good counsel. A lot of women, mothers-in-laws, a lot of different women you can still go to for counsel, and there's nothing wrong with that. She goes out, you notice in this text, she goes out and she shops for the supplies to make things for her house. It talks about tapestries. You think of not just, there's also in the text her making clothes, and tapestries I think could be lots of different things. It just has to do with how she made it, but maybe carpets, curtains. You think about all the things that, tablecloths, all these things, blankets, and she's making all those. And of course she goes out and buys the groceries so she can make the food and cook, feed the house. She gets up super early, make breakfast and all that. And of course, making food back then was a whole lot more of a chore than it is these days. But she would have to get up early. It says while it's still dark outside, and she would do all these things. She'd stay up late, finishing her chores, mending clothes, doing whatever. Said she works out in the garden. She planted her own garden. Now, this text also says that she had maidens. So I don't know what they did, but she had to make sure these things were done, and she was a hard worker. It's not like she had people just go out and do the job for her and she didn't do anything. You can definitely see that in the text. Okay, but she worked out in the garden, planting, doing all that's required there for gardening, keeping up with the things. Of course, that requires weeding constantly, watering, making sure it's properly taken care of. She makes a little extra income where she can, brings that out. I don't know, she makes things and sells them, and all these things we see about this virtuous woman. And again, I'm going to read the text here in a second, but interestingly enough, tonight, I'm going to do something that seems to me, whenever I thought about this, it seemed really weird. I thought, a lot of times, this passage of Scripture is directed just towards women. Like I said, Mother's Day, somewhere around that, you often hear about this. It's just directed towards women. It makes sense that it would be directed towards women because the passage is about the virtuous woman. But I got to thinking about this, and maybe my mind works a little differently than some people's, but I thought, I don't know. I'm not a woman, so I don't know what it feels like to be a woman, but I've often thought a lot of the passages of Scripture in the Bible are dealing with men. Stories are about men. There's a lot of talk about the man. In fact, a lot of times it's addressed as to men. And I've always thought, I wonder how hard it is for women to kind of make the application to themselves whenever they do that. And I've seen ladies' meetings or ladies' banquets or whatever, and the theme was a woman after God's own heart. Well, of course, they took that from David, and the Bible said he's a man after God's own heart, and they had to change that to make it a woman. And I realize this, that a lot of the places in the Bible where it talks about man is talking about mankind, right? So it applies to everybody. But sometimes I would say that a woman has to kind of make the application, even though it's directed towards men. I put this out there on Facebook. It's a place where I can go get some input from some of my friends on there. And I said, this is to my Christian women friends. And I explained a little bit about that. And do women have to make a lot of application like that? Surprisingly, most said no. I never really think about it. And I don't know, maybe y'all women in here the same way. I don't really think about it. If it's to men, I can, the application is just kind of natural. It's to all people. And certainly that can be the case. But but one person said this on Facebook. I thought it was interesting. She said, I read the Bible like I read the Constitution. And I think what she means by that is talking about we the people, and it's talking about all people. But the interesting thing about that is, actually the Bible addresses women quite often. Do you know the Constitution really doesn't address women? Some have said that women were specifically left out of the Constitution when it was first written. And if you think about, but all this stuff about equality and all that, you think about the time when the Constitution was written, women weren't voting. Women didn't have a lot of the rights that they have nowadays and all these things. So I don't think that was actually implied. So anyway, I'm just saying that the Bible actually does address women a lot. But here in this chapter, I'm going to kind of do a reversal of what my mind was thinking that women have to do. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. And that is this: even the men, okay? I'm going to apply all these things to the men because I'm sitting here reading all this and it sounds like, the women, they need to wake up early. They need to make the breakfast. They need to do this, they need to do that, go out there and make a little extra money and do all these things. But that's not what I'm saying. Here's what I'm trying to say tonight when we read the text. Here's what I want you to think about. What we see here is somebody who is working hard and they're diligent. And if you are in the situation where you're doing all these things, many I'm sure do these things, and you're doing all these things, there has to be times when you're doing it where you think, is this really worth it? Like, I'm not getting any credit for doing all this work. I'm working myself to the bone. I'm tired. I don't have a life. Don't have a social life. I'm just work. That's all I do. And then I come home and then I have to work for my family. And then I go to the church and I have to work for the church. And it's work. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you might sometimes feel like that and say, what is it? Be like Solomon, It's just all vanity and vexation of spirit. Why do we do all this stuff, right? And so what I wanted to talk about tonight as we read this, and then I'll give some points real quickly, is this: all your hard work that you do in this life will one day pay off. Guaranteed. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. Whatever you're working hard towards, it could be anything, it will pay off in the end. And so here is the title, Rejoicing in Time to Come. That comes from verse 25. Verse 25 of our text says, strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. All right? So rejoicing in time to come. Now let's read our text. The words of King Lemuel. Now, I think there are some who have associated this with Solomon and said that's actually talking about Solomon, which would make his mother Bathsheba. But I don't necessarily think that there's any good reason to assume that. I think this is a different guy. I'm not sure. We don't know anything about him from Scripture or history. But the words of King Lemuel, the prophecy that his mother taught him. What, my son, and what the son of my womb, and what the son of my vows? Give not thy strength unto woman. This is good advice. Give not thy strength unto women. You can't help but think about Samson right there. He definitely gave his strength to women. Nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings. Now, what are some things that destroyeth kings? Here we go. It is not for kings, O Lemuel. It is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes strong drink, lest they drink and forget the law and pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted. We see that in the Bible, and we see that throughout history. But rather they should be of a sober mind, right? Give strong drink unto him that is ready to perish, and wine unto those that be of heavy hearts. Let him drink, forget his poverty, and remember his misery no more. Open thy mouth for the dumb in the cause of all such as are appointed to destruction, Open thy mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy. That's good advice that she gave to her son. And then here we have the section about the virtuous woman. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. How valuable something is depends on how rare it is. And that's, virtuous woman is a rare thing. That's why she's saying, who can find a virtuous woman? I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard recently they found a way to make diamonds out of, maybe somebody's heard this, I don't know, out of coal and peanut butter. They heat it up really, really hot, and I don't know, peanut butter is somehow involved, and the two together make some kind of, I don't know, and eventually they can get diamonds out of that. And so they're saying, hey, there's going to come a time here pretty soon where they can create all these diamonds in the lab. I mean, they already create these fake things, but this will be like the real stuff, and all of a sudden diamonds won't be as precious anymore, right? But this is a precious thing that we're talking about, a virtuous woman. Look at this, verse 11. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall not have need of spoil. I'll try to explain that here in a minute. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeketh wool and flax, and worketh willingly with her hands. She is like a merchant ship, she bringeth her food from afar. She riseth also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens. She considereth the field, and buyeth it, and the fruit of her hands she planteth, with the fruit of her hands she planteth a vineyard. She girdeth her loins with strength, and strengtheneth her arms. She perceiveth that her merchandise is good, her candle goeth not out by night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. Both of those have to do with whatever ancient mechanism they use for sewing, and it's kind of like an ancient sewing machine there. She stretcheth out her hands to the poor, yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry, her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sitteth among the elders of the land. She maketh fine linen, and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchants. That'd be belts. I don't know if she made them out of leather or not, but she made belts, and she sold them. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. Her children arise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praiseth her. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Favor is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. Now, of course, if it was Mother's Day or something along those lines, we would spend time making that application and towards the women. But I think we can get some basic application here for everybody about hard work. And here's the deal. When you feel like quitting because your work's hard and you don't feel like you're getting out of it what you think that you should as far as recognition or profit, and you don't think it's worth it, here are some things to think about, okay? First of all is this: your hard work and faithfulness will one day pay off in this sense. Look at verse 11. It says, the heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. Now, this is the way I understand that. When you used to be that they would go into war, and you see this, even sometimes God, in the Bible, it seems like he shows favor towards this principle, but they would have war in the conquering nation, even if it was the Israelites, they'd conquer a nation, and when they won, they were, hey, we own this land now. So they were entitled to all the spoil. They got all the wealth and riches that those other people had. Now they were, their servants or whatever. A lot of them were killed, and then they had the spoil. Now, we can't hardly relate to that now, but if somebody were to say, they have need of spoil. I thought of it like this. You could almost say, have you ever had somebody, like you're thinking about all these things that you have coming up, bills that need to be paid, something that you're wanting to buy, and you say, man, I need to go rob a bank. Anybody ever said that? I'll say, well, I got to go rob a bank, to pay for all these things that I have to do. Well, I think a similar thing could have been said back then. I'm not saying this was the colloquialism or whatever used, but so, I need to go pillage a village and get the spoil, so that I have what I need, because there's all this stuff coming up and I have need of so many things I need to buy and all these things I need to fix and all these, and I don't have enough money for that. And so I have need of spoil. I need to go rob a bank or something like that. I think that's the principle here, but he's saying in this text she's saying about the virtuous woman, the one that works hard, he's not in need of that. He's not worried about needing extra money. Things are just functioning fine. They're working okay, and everything's worked out. He's not afraid of that. Verse 21 says this: she's not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. Now, I don't know what the color of your clothing has to do with preparing you for the snow, but whatever the case, they have the clothes that they need. They have coats, whatever. They're prepared. And, you think about this idea of saving for a rainy day. And if you got the money saved whenever things get rough, hey, you got a little extra money put away. You're not worried about things whenever they happen. You've got some resources. You've got stuff stashed away or whatever. It's just this peace that comes with knowing that somebody has worked hard and they're prepared and they got things ready. It's good to be prepared in everything that we do. It's good to be prepared. In fact, everything that we do should be in some way preparing us for the future. Otherwise, we're wasting time. But it could be even recreation. Sometimes it's just giving you an opportunity to relax so that you can work hard. Not just for the sake of relaxing for the rest of your life, but so that whenever you do go back to work, you're refreshed and you can work hard. Everything we do should be in mindset that hey, I'm preparing for work to come or something else to do. I'm getting ready for a rainy day or the snow or whatever. Okay, here would be an example. How many, I hate to ask it that way, I'm trying to think. You have company that comes in unexpected. There's a knock at the door, and it's somebody that you weren't expecting to come. You've got two things that happen. One, I think, is more common than the other. One could be, oh, I'm so glad I had the house clean. I didn't know my guest was coming over. Number two is running around, hey, throw that in the closet, lock that door, put things, clean up real quick, pick this stuff up. Now, that probably happens more often than not. But think about that feeling of, oh, I'm so glad I was prepared for that. I'm so glad when they came over, things were already nice and clean. And so that's the idea. Okay, so your diligence, your hard work, you hate it while you're doing it, but you can rest assured that I'm doing it, it's for good. Down the road, I'm going to be glad I did it. It's going to pay off in the end. Okay, number two, after many years of hard work and faithfulness, you will have earned a place of honor and respect in the eyes of others. That's something to look forward to, but it takes time and it takes diligence, and it doesn't happen overnight. Back to verse 11. Why is it that the heart of her husband can safely trust in her? Well, he's learned through experience. I give her some extra money. She makes it go a long way. She gets what she needs, and everything's fine. She takes care of things. I can trust her. I know that she's going to do that. So when we do something, when we're working hard, we're proving to other people, hey, you can trust me. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to take care. I think of guys in the Bible like Joseph, and Daniel. They could always be trusted. You give them something, even the people that should have been their enemy, they gave them something, and God blessed them for the hard work that he did, and in the end, they ended up getting promotions and all that kind of stuff because they were faithful and diligent and worked hard. So verse 28, Why do her children arise and call her blessed and her husband? Well, her children have learned that, she's going to come through. She's going to provide for my needs. She's going to do what she said she's going to do. Verse 23, it seems like in verse 23, her husband is known in the gates when he sitteth among the elders of the land. It seems like that has something to do, why would they put it in this passage here, with the wife. What's the wife got to do with the man being known? Well, how many times have you heard, behind every good man is a good wife? That is very true. And I think I'm going to mess this joke up probably if I try to tell it, but it just came into my mind. Somebody was saying that, I'm not even going to try it. I'll save it for another day. Nothing I hate worse than messing up a joke. Okay, so you're thinking, well, there is something worse than messing up a joke. Not telling it when you were going to. Anyway, here's what I was going to say. Some of the men, you probably know what the joke is now. Some of the men that have become president or some other kind of good position in our nation or whatever, they themselves would attribute it to their wife, and the work that she did to help them get there and all that stuff. And of course, I talk to a lot of pastors, preachers that are the same way. And so I think something, why is he known in the gates when he sits among the elders? Something has to do with somehow that has to do with his wife as well. Number 3, so your work's going to pay off just because you're going to be prepared, right, whenever something comes in the future. Number 2, after lots of hard work, faithfulness, you've earned a place of honor and respect in the eyes of others. That's worth working hard for. Number 3 is this: even if your hard work and faithfulness never seems to be rewarded in this life, the Bible says God is going to reward you for that hard work. 1 Corinthians 10:31. I'm going to read that. Why don't you turn to Colossians 3:17. Colossians 3:17. But 1 Corinthians 10:31 says this: whether therefore ye eat or drink or whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of God. All right, Colossians 3. I meant to already have that marked. Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians 3, verse 17. And whatsoever ye do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God and the Father by him. Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands, as it is fit in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives, and be not bitter against them. Children, obey your parents in all things, for this is well-pleasing unto the Lord. You see, even in our relationships, it requires diligence and hard work and investment that goes into that relationship. Fathers, provoke not your children to anger, lest they be discouraged. Servants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasers, but in singleness of heart, fearing God. Verse 24, verse 23, and whatsoever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord, and not unto men, knowing that of the Lord ye shall receive the reward of the inheritance. For ye serve the Lord Christ, but he that doeth wrong shall receive for the wrong which he hath done, and there is no respect of persons. So God looks on us, and he sees our work that we're doing, and if we're working hard, and it's for the sake of, hey, the Lord wants me to be a hard worker, I'm doing this unto him, he says that in the future, he's going to bless for that. One of the frustrating things in life is this. You mow the grass, and you know the grass is going to come right back up again in 2 days. You do the dishes, and you say, look how nice, all the dishes are clean, they're put away, and you're tempted to say, don't anybody get another dish, paper plates and paper cups and plastic forks from here on out, right? It's not going to happen. They're going to get dirty again. Laundry, I just did the last load. What happened? My wife says this a lot because we go through a lot of dirty clothes. And she comes and I just got caught up on the laundry, and all of a sudden there's this big mountain. Where did it all come from? Well, guess what? It's going to be like that again next week, and next week, and next week, and next week. It gets frustrating in life, and sometimes we want to give up. I don't understand. Bills. Now, the truth of the matter is this. For the last 7 years, I've not had to pay a whole lot of bills. Utilities paid for. I don't have rent and all that now. In Oklahoma City, different story. And so I kind of got comfortable with this idea of not having these monthly bills. There's certain bills I got to pay for, of course, insurance and all these kinds of things. But when I took over being the pastor and all the bills come in the mail, you're like, man, I just got caught up on all the utility bills, and here they come again. I just got caught up on paying the, whatever. I'm trying to think of all the bills we got. The missionaries, just got all the checks sent out, and now here it comes from, Bible Baptist Fellowship, and all these bills come in. I'm like, guess what? There's never going to be a day when that just stops. It's always going to come. So diligence is this. Whether we like it or not, it's not futile. We have to keep on doing it. But if we don't do it, then we got problems, right? There's a story. I want to say it's in. Ecclesiastes. But Solomon looks at this garden that's overrun with weeds and the walls broken down and all that, and he makes this kind of what do you call it? I don't know, like a. What do you call it? Jesus always spoke in parables, kind of like a parable. Is that what you said? He makes like this kind of parable about this. And that is kind of representative of our lives. When you let things go, and boy, don't I know it, they just, they don't just fix themselves. Everything in life, contrary to what evolution teaches, everything devolves. It doesn't evolve, okay? Everything in life devolves, and you got to constantly be fixing it and painting it and getting, replacing things, and you got to do all that, and that's just life. However, you can rest assured that it will pay off. You'll be prepared and ready whenever it's needed, and you'll say, boy, I'm glad I did that. Others will learn to respect you for your hard work and diligence, and regardless of whether you're ever recognized for your hard work, the Lord will reward us in heaven. Let's turn in our songbooks to page 515, appropriate song.